Dave and Grace, yes. Could I please welcome to the stage writer-directors Gareth Carr David Sullivan and actor Gary Boulter, please. Should be working.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
I'll sit here. There we go. Excellent. Alrighty. Well, okay. So, Gareth, Gary. Here we go. Got some light. David. Fabulous work. It's a great pleasure to have your film playing here at the 15th edition of A Night of Horror International Film Festival and the Australian premiere.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now look, you guys have both directed short films, and this is your debut feature. What made you decide to collaborate on your first feature?
Well, we shot a short film together, and a friend of ours who isn't here tonight, David Sawyer, he had a friend who had that house that you can see there, and he came to us and he said, "Oh, do you want to shoot a short film? I've got this house, the people are going away, and yeah, do you want to shoot a short film?" So we were like, "Well, we've just shot this other short, how long have we got?" And he's like, "Well, about a month." So we were like, "Why don't we shoot a feature then?"
This was in the Manly Wharf bar after about 5 or 6 beers though. It seemed easy then.
Well, okay, this leads me into the next question, which is, I'd like you to describe the creative approach you used then as co-screenwriters and as co-directors. Like, how did it work collaborating on paper, and then how did it work collaborating on location or, shooting the film?
It was a bit of back and forth, so I'd write a bit, David would write a bit, I'd write a bit, and then we just try and merge that together pretty much. A bit like one of those pictures when you were kids where someone would draw a bit, but the rest would be folded over, and then when you unwrap it at the end, you see this weird creature.
I know that.
We actually thought about a list of scenes, and I'm a procrastinator as like a writer, and it was awesome because suddenly I'd get an email, and it'd be from Gareth saying, "Here's 10 pages." I'm like, "Oh shit, I better write some pages." And so it was a great driver to keep that sort of going. And so we could just look at each other's work and see how those scenes looked. Yeah.
So you found a simpatico as writers. It wasn't a case where one of you would write something and the other was like, "That's not going to work, no, we can't do it."
There may have been a little bit of that, but we made it work in the end. So.
And then on location, or when you were shooting, did either of you take any kind of position, behind the camera, composing shots, blocking?
Well, Gareth's good with the camera, whereas I'm not. So he was holding the camera the whole time, and he's got lots of experience as a videographer on other short films and sort of corporate gigs. So very much knows how to. Sorry to tell you the story. I'm talking you up, so it's all right. But so he very much knows to come to a set and get coverage, the sort of basic coverage straight away, quick. And so from behind the camera, he could do that, and then from me, just standing there and looking. Maybe more from a performance point of view. Sometimes I could see what had worked or what hadn't worked, because we were still working at quite a pace, so you had to keep it going.
Yeah. Which then leads me into you there, Gary. Did you audition? How were you cast? And
usual way. I saw an audition, and then I saw an audition notice, applied, and Gareth sent me his film stuff to have a look at, and I looked at his films and I thought, "Oh, I'd love to be involved in this," and got the gig.
So did you rehearse also with Kirsty as well, or did?
It was a table read, I think.
Yeah, the whole thing came together pretty quick. We only had probably a month or so. Once David Sawyer told us the house was available, we were literally like, "Crap, we need to write a script, we need to do all the auditions, bring everything together," and that was it. So it was all a bit of a rush job, but having that pressure was good because it gave us that drive to get it done.
So there wasn't really much of a rehearsal process leading into the shoot?
No, we only went for a quick recce at the house literally before we wrote the script. So here we are, take some pictures around the house, right, what could we we do here, what can we do there, what's available, let's go back, let's write it. So once we got to the house to shoot, that was it, and blocking kind of happened on the fly pretty much for the shoot.
I think the rehearsals and the blocking were actually the same thing.
So did that lend itself to any? Was there much improvisation while you were shooting? Tell us more, Gary. Tell us more.
I snuck in a few lines there, but yes, but mostly to the script. But guilty,
No, for sure. We're not the type of directors that like, this is the script, this is how you're going to say it. It's very loose and open. It's kind of like, this is how we wrote it, but when you come to speak it in real life, it might sound naff or whatever. So always happy for the actors to kind of chip in and say, how about this? And
And I've got to tell you about Gareth's t-shirt. These two are lovely people, and you should all totally work with them. But when you're on set, sometimes he wears a shirt, and after the third or second take, he points to the shirt. What does the shirt say? It says, do it again, but better. It's a really good shirt.
it just saves me saying it, saves the vocal cords.
Yeah.
Now, look, one of the things I love about this is that there's, it feels influenced by the films without anything really obvious or specific. And I was wondering, did you have direct influences coming through, in the writing stage or even in the shooting stage? Were there reference points that you had before the project began?
One of the ones for me was the Australian film Patrick from 1977.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's obviously a film that I was allowed to stay up late and watch one night, and it absolutely scared the crap out of me. And it's basically a comatose patient guy, for anyone that hasn't seen it. And he's on screen for about 3/4 of the film, just sitting there, very wide-eyed but stationary in bed. And I remember watching it as a kid, and no matter how much space was in the scene or how much talking was going on, I was just watching him, waiting for him to do what he was going to do, which I knew he was going to do at some point. And it terrified me, so that was part of the influence, for the patient.
Gareth, that's it?
I think my battery's died a little bit. Yeah, I mean, look, we just had to stick with what we had available. So, we've got this creepy house surrounded by the woods. So, I grew up with the classic 80s films. American Werewolf in London was a big one for me that I watched far too young. And I would love to do a creature feature, but again, we've got the budget restraints with this. So, just working with what we had, and I think it came out pretty well.
What do you think draws you to telling dark genre stuff? What rewards do you find personally?
I'd just like to give a big shout out to, I think, the lady who screamed during one of the scares. She gave a good yelp. So things like that, I get a big buzz from that. Yeah. So whoever that was.
Simple pleasures.
Crowd,
What about you, Gary, as an actor? Do you find any particular satisfaction in playing sort of this sort of darker stuff?
Oh yes, I do.
No, look, I was drawn to this most. I like horror, but I like psychological horror as opposed to the torture porn, people getting ripped apart. That's what I really liked, and the implied horror as opposed to seeing everything so graphically, at risk of going on a tangent. The Thing prequel, my God, you saw too much of that alien. But the first version of The Thing was brilliant because you barely saw it, and that's kind of how I felt about this film. It's very, everything's so implied, and you're left to your own imagination. So I thought it was great.
I mean, it's a fabulous looking film. I know it's apparently quite a modest budget, but it looks certainly very slick. One can't underestimate drone photography. Always elevates a picture, I find. I think you were the drone operator.
That's right. Yeah. So there was a few early mornings going down to just near Brooklyn there, and I'd be waiting, and it had to be the right train, because every time you see the train, it's basically a different train. It's never the same train. So I'd be waiting, and I'd hear the noise, went in at the tunnel with the drone flying, it'd come out, and it'd be a little single decker or something. I'm like, crap, it's not the right train. Okay, well, let's just keep waiting then. Yeah, and trying to time it with the sunrise as well, just to get that kind of epic sunrise shot through the bridge. So, yeah.
No, look, Gray, I mean, was financing difficult for this? Did it take a look?
Well, you have to ask Naomi that, because yeah, we didn't get any finance. It all came from our own pockets. The house you could only access by water taxi, so that was a pain. Budget-wise, the water taxi would only give us the price once we got to the house, so the price would constantly change, depending on the driver. So sometimes we get hit with a big bill.
You have to make sure all the kids in that water taxi, or it's another trip.
Yeah. If you run out of milk, it's $100 to go and get milk.
Yeah, it's all the glamour of me walking around Audi doing a food shop to feed 6 people for a weekend. That was it. That was part of the first weekend. That was key.
So, I mean, obviously it was a good experience collaborating. Is this something you'll continue doing as co-directors?
Who knows? I've got my own film coming out soon, hopefully this year. But yeah, maybe next year we'll look to work together again.
I'd like to throw some questions out to the audience. Or are there any questions any of the audience members?
I just wanted to know where the other actors are that were in it.
So Kirsty, the lead.
Or not?
Kirsty, the lead actor, she is in South Africa at the moment.
Aye.
And then she's moving to the UK. And Carol, who plays Grace, she's travelling in a caravan at the moment, so she's up in Queensland.
And what about
And fabulous Dawn here, right in the front. She's actually the lady that gets the bag on her head. And Dawn was a legend who actually got suffocated for real.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually. So how was that done?
Well, that was done by putting a bag on Dawn's head.
I loved every second of it. Staring now.
Asphyxiation does terrible.
Well, yeah, Dawn's a legend.
How do you both work as co-directors? Like, how does that partnership work on set in terms of directing scenes and reviewing footage and directing the actors? Can you tell us a bit about how you both collaborate?
Well, I think we touched on it earlier because Gareth's behind the camera. He was had to be more involved in just getting that sort of shot right and picking shots, and he's very good at that and knowing how to get coverage. So he would very much take that role. And so because I was off camera, I could just look back and see how the scene generally looked from a wider point of view and how the performances worked. But in terms of how a scene was going to be directed, because we kind of wrote sort of half each, it was give and take, I think. There'd be certain scenes where you'd give and that person had a strong point of view, and other times that you would hopefully take, and then your point of view could be taken in how you saw it, I think.
What about in the editing suite then? Were you both?
I wasn't involved in that, that was all Gareth.
Right.
Yeah, so the edit was all down to me.
He did a great
Obviously,
job.
he would have obviously had to do it.
He did a great job, by the way.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Who picks out the suspense music?
Oh, hang on, sorry. Just one at a time. So just.
This is not a story-based question, but with the bit where the hair was like in the throat, how did that come to? I was a bit confused as how it happened. Is it just sort of
Within the story or the actual effect?
both, I guess. I was a bit confused with both.
Well, the story is kind of ambiguous whether she's just dreaming that or it's something that's happening, and obviously then that could be around Ada's sort of hair and that spiritual sort of aspect. In terms of the effect, I remember we were running up to that weekend and had no kind of an idea how to do that, and I was desperately trying to find a way, and it literally came down to, I think, well, Gareth, you managed to get some fake hair, didn't you, sort of wig hair?
Yeah, I think Naomi got some.
Yeah, and then I just thought, well, if we get a cotton reel and put it on a bit of plastic, Kirsty could put that in her mouth, grip on the bits of plastic, and then just unravel the hair from the cotton reel as it came out of her mouth. So it was
Very
a full
effective.
sort of 50 cent kind of a ad effect kind of thing. Yeah, but it kind of worked.
This gentleman, I think you had a question.
Yeah, how did you pick out the suspense music and all the sound editing afterwards?
There's actually a composer who writes all the music for the film. So we don't kind of pick it. It's written for the film. So it hits every beat. When something happens on screen, he'll hit his keyboard or whatever he does. And then fantastic job by Joseph Narai, who's not here tonight, but Paul Murchison is in the crowd as well. There he is up at the back. So he did the sound mix. So the sound plays a huge part in horror. Those guys did an amazing job.
Yeah, that was great. Yep.
I just want to know how you did the underwater scenes, because that was really interesting, and the fact that girl stood up in there when she knew there was something around her.
So
Did they actually have to go underwater, or did you just?
yeah, the underwater scenes were actually shot in Carol's swimming pool. So Carol plays Grace. So I was on the edge for a lot of it. When she comes peeping up out of the water, I was getting nailed by mosquitoes. She comes up, and then the underwater stuff was literally just a GoPro in her pool. And then the same with the waterfall. We went out and swam in the waterfall, and I'd swim down and try and look up at her with the GoPro. And then at the end with the boat, we went to the basin up at Palm Beach, and we pushed the boat out, and we were in kind of like waist deep water, and the stingrays swimming around us, and we actually pushed it under the shark net fence to get in there, and then there's a sign on the shark net fence saying not shark proof. So we're there, pitch black, middle of the night, and just like, waded through with the camera, waist deep, and it was a challenge.
I mean, it brings me up, this is sort of a funny question, I suppose, but I've often read how, particularly on horror films, there tends to be a lot of joking around, like in the end, I guess maybe a form of sort of trying to find relief. Not necessarily jokes, you're not seeing the jokes on screen. And I'm wondering, was there a lot of fooling around, a lot of laughter when you're sort of trying to, particularly in sort of the more serious sort of stuff? Is there a lot of truth to that?
Yeah, definitely. We're such a small crew, such a tight-knit family. And I think that helped to just create a bond between us all. And, as soon as the shoot would end, the beers would come out, the wine, and, we'd have a few drinks, and then, the alarm would go off at 5 a.m. the next day, and we'd be like, why did we drink last night?
On our last day of shooting, we had some wine left, so Gareth and I drank it all. Had a terrible hangover the next morning, and we went down to the boat ramp, and we were just lying on the boat ramp with all the kit around us, waiting to get taken off, feeling terrible. And an Airbnb guest turned up on a water taxi, and we didn't move. We were just lying on our backs, looking up at the sky. And the Airbnb guy got off his water taxi and just stepped over us. And we didn't move.
Have you got that on film? Are there stills, photos, or it never happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, we've got to wrap up because there's another session. Is there one maybe final question? Yes.
Has this been seen overseas?
Well,
Yeah, it had a limited theatrical run in the US, and you can also watch it US Amazon Prime and UK Prime. We're trying to get Australian distribution. Haven't yet, but hopefully that'll happen soon this year. And this tonight is just the start of that. So yeah.
well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys here and being able to provide you with an Australian premiere on the big screen. If we could put our hands together, please, Gareth, Gary, and David.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's a great turnout. It means a lot.
Yep. Please feel free to kind of mingle back outside, and the bar's open,
Yeah.
you can have drinks.
If a bomb goes off in here tonight, it'll be a disaster for my social life, because literally all my favourite people are in this room. So.
But look, yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to do one more plug for our closing night film. You saw the trailer. That's the other Australian feature we've got tomorrow night, Violet, at 6:45. So, but thank you once again for supporting independent genre filmmaking, emerging filmmakers, and niche film festivals. Thank you.
Thank you.